today we're going to be talking about building a drone. We are going to build this drone today. It's the LU5 from Luke Unger. His information is below. Check out his YouTube page. He puts out a lot of cool videos. He designed and cut on his CNC machine this frame for this drone. It looks beautiful. You can see kind of the structure from the bottom. He also designed all these prints. You'll see them printed on the printer. This is the drone. Well, we're going to build this today. Before we do that, I want to thank everyone for watching the video. If you could take the moment now, just like, subscribe, comment. Go check out Luke's page. Without further ado, let's get the show on the road.
Let's start with the bottom plate on one arm.
Brace for the cage here.
This part specifically is designed to house the HD0 Freestyle VTX, so that's going to be really nice. Let's continue on. We're going to take our screws and attach our standoffs to the bottom plate. Make sure they're nice and snug down.
That aside here.
Grab my big box of goodies, let's go through it.
Got some props. I'm going to start off with some 51477s. I guess we'll start with the basics here. Betaflight 2 buzzer.
We're going to be using the Mamba F50 BLS, the Mamba 405 MK2, and we use a Crossfire Nano module and an Immortal T antenna. Look what we have here. Got some nice stickers there.
I like stickers.
This is one of the first batches of the HD0 Freestyle. I'm going to be wiring it to the 9-volt pad on the flight controller, which is 2 amps. Should be more than enough to cover our Freestyle voltage. There is a 10-volt regulator that comes with these. I tend not to use mine, so I'm just going to leave it in the box. We are also going to be using a Runcam Nano HD0. This is a wonderful tiny little camera. We are going to be using a UFL to SMA connector because I use different antennas depending on what I'm doing. I'm going to be using Toka motors, Mamba 2207.5, 1700 kV. Love these motors, got a bunch of them.
Are we ready to continue? Class, are we ready?
We're going to start by getting the ESC all wired up. The first step of that is to put some gummies in the mount holes. Then we will cut our wires to length for our XT60 connector, making sure that our red and black wires are all the same length. Then I'm going to trim the insulator off with just enough space, and repeat for the power. Connect them in our handy clamps here. Just for this cable, just for the bigger wires, I bring out the big old Weller. This thing has lots of heat and it has a trigger to control. I'm just gonna plug it in here. I want to be very quick while I do this because I don't want the solder to just wool and pool down the cable and make it all hard later. We want it to stay right on the end. And we'll solder our ground wire. And our power wire. Then I'm going to take the connector and we're going to tin those connections as well. And then finally attach it to our ESC. I didn't show it here, but you also want to connect a 35 volt 480 UHF capacitor to your power leads on the board. Now I'm going to take my smaller soldering iron with a more precise tip and I'm just going to tin all these pads. I try to get my soldering iron right around 420. I'm just going to try to... One thing to note is I did add flux to all of these pads before we started solder. We got some motor wire covers, some skid plates, ×2, an antenna plate for the SMA connector, an antenna mount for the Crossfire Immortal T, a universal mount for a GoPro, and an HD0 Nano adapter. And then I just take a little piece of double-sided tape and stick it to those motor wire protectors. We have a nice look at all those wonderful prints that Luke designed. let's get back to it. Now I'm going to take all of these wires and push them through these motor protectors.
Oh man, that's a pain in the ass.
Now we're going to take the motors and mount them to the frame. One screw only, because I will be taking this off and flipping the ESC over, because I like to have my motors protected on the bottom. Kind of just gives it a little security for me, and it looks nice. I think they look nice. We're going to go through, let's trim all our wires up to the right length. And we're also going to strip that insulation away so we can get it prepped to solder to the ESC. I'm going to go through, we'll add some flux to our wires and then tin them so they're ready to solder to the board. We'll replace our ESC back on the frame here and then just kind of take each one and heat them to the pads, making sure solder flows nice and even. And we'll take our one screw out of each motor and turn everything over. Put her back on the frame. Putting just one screw in again, because we will be taking this off one last time to conformal coat once everything is wired and it has been tested that it works. Plug our flight controller in, making sure that you have your power, ground, and all your motor connections in the right spot for your ESC and flight controller. Add a couple gummies and throw this on the board. Next, we will get our VTX ready. I am going to add a 50 volt 1000 UF capacitor in line with the video transmitter power on the 9 volt pad. So we're going to make a little jumper here and some shrink wrap down there beforehand so we can slide that up and cover it once we get it soldered up here. We'll clip that in, solder up our ground, solder up our power, get our fancy little hair dryer here, slide that shrink wrap up, and we'll give it a little shrink. We're going to take our MIPI cable and connect that to the Freestyle VTX, and then take the stabilization plate and attach that with a couple screws supplied in the packaging. Might need a tweezers. It's easier to put them in. Tiny little micro up screwdriver. Now repeat the same process with the UFL to SMA connector and add the little secure plate. Screw those in nice. And then I will add some mounting screws to the VTX slot, as well as a few gummies just to kind of keep it soft mounted and off the carbon fiber bottom plate. I'm going to tuck away my MIPI connector underneath the board here as to keep it away from the gyro, and get a nice test fit in here. Everything looks like it's fitting well. We're going to connect the MIPI cable to the RunCam Nano and just put the plate on just so we know it works. Take our adapter and the side plates for the front. Now I think Luke has replaced these side plates in future versions, so if this doesn't match yours, just apply as necessary. Now we'll trim and pull the insulator from the TX and RX signal from the PTX, as well as our power and our ground. Pull those insulators. And let's solder those into place. Remember, TX to RX and RX to TX. Start by soldering in our RX and TX to the UART we selected. And power to the 9-volt pad and ground to a ground.
I'm not going to use smart audio on this one. I don't have enough UARTs, and it doesn't really matter to me. I could use an F7, but I don't want to.
Let's wire up our Crossfire module. Now down the board it goes channel 1, channel 2, 5-volt and ground. Channel 1 being the TX that goes to RX on the flight controller. Channel 2 being RX that goes to the TX on the flight controller. And our power going to 5-volt and our ground going to ground. Now we're going to wire our TX to our RX to our TX, our power to our 5-volt, and our ground to our ground. I will also cut a nice little piece of shrink wrap here for later. Make sure it fits this, and we'll just slide it down past the receiver here. We're going to take our Immortal T connector and attach it here, and I've got to figure it out that I'm going to come backwards on this, so I want to make sure to put some E6000 and just make sure that this antenna is not going to move or come disconnected or anything like that, because it is the main link for the drone. And afterthoughts here, we're just going to wire up a beeper connector for our Wi-Fi. Now we're ready to plug into Betaflight. Make sure you're using a data USB cable, an antenna, and a smoke stopper. And we're just gonna plug that in. And I guess you'll need a fourth thing. A fully charged battery. Now we're gonna update the firmware. It's a fresh chip, so we're gonna do a full chip erase, auto detect, and we are using the Furry F4. Use the latest version of 4.3.1, latest at the time anyway. Make sure everything is correct, and we'll flash it. Yay! And connect. Apply custom defaults. And reconnect. I'm gonna calibrate the accelerometer. Everything seems to be responding. We'll go to our ports tab. We are going to select Serial RX on UART1. We'll move over to our MSP on UART3. We'll turn that on for the HD0. We do want it set to 115200. And we're going to move over to our peripherals and turn IRC tramp to disabled. And save that, connect. Back to our configurator here. I like to name my craft just so I know in my OSD which one I'm flying later, and it can be kind of just nice. My max arm angle I want at 180 degrees in case I disarm in midair or in a precarious situation. We're going to set our battery capacity to at 1100 because that's usually what I'm going to use. And I'm going to turn my minimum cell voltage down to 3.2. My maximum cell voltage can say 4.3, and my warning cell voltage down to 3.4. And I will save that. And we'll move on to our failsafe. I just want that set to drop. And I like to still use the Betaflight rates. Everybody has their own rates, so you can kind of set what you think is right, or just start with the stock and move from there.
Now, for the next part, you simply load in the freestyle unlock onto a little card, whatever size you want to do, whatever in the right format. Pop that in there. Now she's ready.
And we'll plug this into here. Bring our camera down here and we can take a look what this looks like in the goggles. We'll throw some power to the goggles and that should update the VTX to unlock it. Look at that. Update successful. Neat. We're going to unplug it from our VTX and repower our VTX.
This is for all the marbles. Let's hope for no smoking, huh?
And I will go ahead and take a battery and repower the VTX.
That's a good sign. Alright.
Pull my SD card here. Put the new firmware on here, or as new as I want to go, because it matches everything. And I'll plug the VTX into the HD0 RX.
So I'm going to go ahead and plug in the goggles, which is going to then update the firmware on the free cell. And I'll show you what that looks like.
Firmware update successful. Repower VTX now.
Want to set the VBAT sag compensation to 100%. And we'll power our quad back up here, and let's pull up ESC configurator. We use the browser version, might as well. Now since we're using a BHELES ESC, we're going to use BlueJ. Select the ESC, it's already selected. We're going to use the newest version of BlueJ and do 48 kilohertz. And we'll just flash all 4 ESCs here. Let's open the melody editor. What's got? Rick and Morty? Cool. Alright, accept. Write melodies.
Alright. Okay, I like that.
Now I'm going to go through and just check each motor to make sure it's spinning and it's spinning the correct direction. This is your HD0 manual. It gives you descriptions of everything. You want to make sure soft serial is off, OSD is on. Then you can go ahead and enter these commands into your CLI with a battery plugged in, so your VTX is powered and your flight controller is powered. You'll want to make sure that the number you enter in is 1 less than your UART. So we will go to our CLI. We're going to type in set OSD display port device equals MSP. Enter. Then we will set display port MSP to whatever UART -1. In our case, we use UART 3, so I'm going to select 2 and hit enter and save. Now we can open up our USD, and again, this is kind of a personal thing. I like to select all these components. We're just going to quickly move through and kind of put the things I like where I want them. Now, battery not full is not a warning. Let's get rid of that. Move rid of a couple of these other things too. Make sure to set link quality warning on, and a few other things. We'll save and disconnect. Now we are ready to set up our radio to make sure it is communicating with our Crossfire module.
Welcome to OpenTX.
let's go ahead and just set up. I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate it from another one of my common 5-inch flights. I kind of do everything the same, so we'll go ahead and do that quick. And we'll make sure we select serial as our receiver mode, and the protocol is Crossfire. Reconnect, and our sticks are responding as they should. Next, we'll move into the modes tab. This is kind of personal, kind of not. I like to set up an ARM switch. I have an angle on that I use sometimes in emergencies. I don't set up horizon. I always set up a beeper, and USB disable in case I just want to pull off OSD and kind of just cruise for a bit. Again, this is all kind of personal, however you like to set up your radio. I like to do a flip over after crash, get a little turtle mode in case I crash upside down and want to try to flip over. A pre-arm switch is crucial in my book. Always pre-arm. Nobody needs any chop fingers. VX pit mode at the low side. That way my VTX stays in low. I've had mixed reviews with HD0. Just sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So anyway, we will turn this on here. Power up the quad. Hey, look at that. R1. OSD on. Nice. Pre-arm.
Arm. Cool.
So one thing I did want to make sure I had was bi-directional D-shot set to on. Since we have Blue Jay, this should be a great addition to the system. Agree. Make sure our motor poles are set to 14 and our motor idle at 2.5. I like that low. Save and reboot. And we'll pop down to our motors tab here. Make sure it's stuck. It did. Awesome. Look at our PID tuning. Our VBAT is on.
Good news. Get to take it all back apart again. Why? Why would you take it apart again? MG Chemicals. Minnesota. We have a lot of water and snow. This stuff glows as you put it on. It is basically silicone. You just paint it on the boards. It covers everything so it can be waterproofed. And that way when you drop in the snow, which you inevitably will if you fly in the winter. Conformal coat. Let's do it. We're going to take everything apart. We're going to conformal it all and let it sit overnight.
One thing I do want to mention while painting this on is to definitely check with a UV lamp and stay away from any connectors or USB ports or anything like that. You don't want that stuff oozing in there, making it so you can't connect to it ever again.
Now that that's dry, we're gonna go ahead and assemble it the true and right way. These awesome 3D prints have full hole, so you get the full screw on the one side of the motor, and the other two will hold this print on as well as connect to the motor. Careful, careful, careful. Since we are using different depths on the motors here with these good old boys, we're going to be using a 3 8mm and an M3 9mm for that little bit of longer reach that we need. Alright, that's good. Motor card's on. The whole goal of these are to prevent prop breaks. Racking on your motor wires there, you know. Because if it bends enough to do anything, it's going to be right in that neighborhood, so we can come out just a little bit. About a pinky.
So once you find a good place for this, then we'll just pull off the second piece of the double-sided tape and stick it down nice and firm on that carbon. And rinse, slather, repeat.
Shrink our crossfire unit here.
Place our flight controller in in its spot, and our VTX in its spot. Tuck that MIPI through the bottom, and we're going to double side tape our capacitor in the front for the VTX down to the plate. And I'm going to add a couple gummies here for the support plate for our receiver, and zip tie our receiver to this plate. It's a good way to keep it nice and secure. Again, this is what connects our radio to our drone. If something happens to that, it doesn't fly anymore. Tighten that up nicely. And pull our Immortal T antenna back and kind of tuck that underneath the connector and put it in our little mounts here. Pop that guy off. We will clip the excess off of this zip tie here. Kind of bend our connector down here just to make it fit. And kind of get it out of the way and attach our SMA to the plate. Should be able to screw in some M3 screws. Normally I would use a washer, however these are really close to this connector, so we're just going to rely on this plate. Slide that down and attach an antenna. It's tucked away very nicely. Battery connection's right there. However, this is not. Okay, hold on. So, tighten down the TPU yet one. Now it's tight. Thanks, Joshua Bardwell. Always got me learning over here. Let's put the top plate on. If you're flying it like this, the drone itself, looking at 446. Oh, you're gonna need a battery, so we're gonna set a battery on there. 652. Not one, not two, not three, but 4 props. 668. This is what most people that aren't carrying HD cameras are gonna be flying at. I like this. This is a good weight for that. Me, I personally am gonna put an HD camera on it. Let's do a GoPro Hero 7. So the mounts for it, the camera and battery, and an ND filter. Just because. Now you can't forget about the weight of the hardware, screws and washers. So we're gonna assemble all of this on here, and a couple straps are always gonna add just a couple little grams. Break open this Oma grip stuff here. And we'll stick that down nicely here. Sweet. An ND filter on it. Throw some props on it. Props out. So with straps, antenna, battery, camera, ND filter, props, all the guards, all the goodies, the battery stuff, all up weight 847 grams. She's a boat. Only one last thing to do now. Let's take it outside and fly it around. Let's go check it out. All right, we've got a beautiful sunset coming up here. The LU5, LU5. Oh, it's a beautiful looking drone. We're gonna get a nice maiden voyage here. And they're in gold now. Enjoy. Alright, do a hover test quick here. It definitely hovers.
them already.
Alright, right off the bat, feels nice and stable. Good control, good articulation in the throttle. A little heavier than I'm used to. Oh, a little wobble in the props there. That was probably just me. It's kind of windy too, so I don't know. Let's move around. Yeah. Good power. Let's go cruise the field a little. See what it's like. Man, that's pretty. HD Zero does pretty decent on here. I think I'm only at 25 milliwatts. I didn't jump up to the 1 watt. But that's a good test for out here. Kind of test the range a little bit. Yeah. Nice and smooth. Good roll. It's nice. Felt good. No snap back. A little power. Yeah. Great control. Feels nice and smooth. I don't feel any crazy oscillations. Let's give it a good punch here. Oh yeah. She kicks. Punch and roll out. Yeah, punch again. Roll. Yeah, that's nice. That feels good. Oh, it's gonna be a fun drone. Gosh, thanks, Luke. Just a little freestyle and get a little power loop action going on here. Split S into power loop. I'll give that a shot. I think the camera angle needs to be a little higher too. Let's roll it back. Throw a new battery in, and maybe see what the GoPro 7 looks like on here. Well, let's do a little cinematic works here. Add a little music to the show.
Telemetry recovered.
Little Rick and Morty.
Somewhere on the scene, it got a little longer, so it seems. I burned out, so to speak. Now come a little closer. I feel a little light in the light track. I felt a bit of bad, but I came back. There's still a little light in the light track. Still a bit of good, so good. And I know just what to say. And I know just what to do. And I'm so sick of pain. But it's all too quick with you. Losing this game, I can't afford to be losing this game. And I know you're the safest bet. Losing my mind, can't find the words, no, I can't seem to find. But I'm really trying again. Reason right, let's take our time and choose whether we win or yellow, whether we did or shallow. Please me now, cause we're about to lose, whether we buy or hello, whether we stay or Jell-O. Sometimes, honey, me. You pour a little bit of gasoline. I burned out, so to speak. Come a little closer. Here's some disclosure. Do you mind to quit your pretending? Truth or false, this shit never ending. Hear me now and stop condescending. You see, I'm begging, you hear me beg. If you seek for love, don't try to hide it. Find it deep inside and try to hide it. If there's a way, I wanna know we tried it. Quit your games and now that you denied it. Losing this game, I can't afford to be losing this game. And I know you're the safest bet. Losing my mind, can't find the words, no, I can't seem to find. But I'm really trying again. how we dip or shallow. Please me now, cause we're about to lose. Whether we buy or hello, whether we stick or Jell-O. I gotta move and make amends, but can't go through the same regrets. It could feel so good on mine. Love by love, again. And I know you deserve this better.
Well, this thing flew super awesome. I'm so happy with it. I'm gonna fly it a bunch more, see how much I can do before I start breaking stuff on it. I didn't want to try anything crazy during the maiden voyage, just so I could hold this thing nicely in my hands when it's all done. Special thanks to Luke. Appreciate the frame. It's awesome. Guys, check out HD Zero for the future. It's getting better and better and better. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you later.